Don't ever let somebody tell you you can't do something.
Wait a minute, you ain't heard nothing yet.
You're listening to the Live to Create podcast. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the official Live to Create podcast coming to you from Nashville, Tennessee. I am your host, Shane Almgren, and I am joined today from Seattle, Washington by the founder and creator of Rainworks, Peregrine Church. Peregrine, Rainworks is described as rain-activated art. Can you start out by describing for the listeners what that means?
Sure. A rainwork is a piece of art, usually on a sidewalk, that is invisible on a dry day, but shows up every time it rains. So it's basically a portmanteau of rain plus artwork. It's a rainwork. And we started making these all over Seattle, and now people are making them all over the world in places where it's rainy, or they just want cool water-activated artwork.
And how did you come up with this idea?
I love thinking of ways to, you could say, misuse materials. So say something's intended for one thing, I love coming up with creative ways to apply it in a novel fashion. So when I learned about super hydrophobic coatings, super hydrophobic coatings are a class of like spray coating that you can apply to a surface, and it makes the surface super hydrophobic, which means that water will just roll right off it. It can't get wet. And because it was a spray thing, I realized that if you sprayed it through a stencil onto a surface that changes color when it gets wet, like standard sidewalk concrete, that when everything was dry, everything would look the same. But every time it rained or otherwise got wet, everything would get dark like normal, except for where you sprayed. And that contrast between light and dark would create an image. I just love creating novelty. It's sort of what I live for and what I find the most satisfying. Is when I'm able to create something that is different, like not just artistic, but like with a totally different method or medium. I find that innovation really fun.
So were you artistic as a kid? What is your artistic background?
I don't identify as much with an artist as I do with like a creator. I just like to make things and build things. Like when I can, I make things that are like aesthetically pleasing, but oftentimes it's more the method or the mechanics behind something that make it fascinating to me.
What other types of things, like give us an example of other projects you've done.
Around the same time I was experimenting with super hydrophobic coatings, my friend and I made a whole bunch of mirrors, like tiny mirrors, and set them up with little kickstands. And then we went outside and found like a north-facing wall and went across the street so it could reflect the sun onto the wall and start spelling things. And people came by and were playing with them with us to help just make things. That was kind of, I guess you could call it sun-activated art in a way, because the sun had to be there to make it on the reverse wall.
So it sounds like you kind of have an affinity for temporary art, but that's also based around nature.
Yeah, I love things that are analog. I love like mechanical, kinetic sculptures, things where you can see how it works, or that it doesn't require any like electrical power source. Those are the types of things I love to create that sort of just work because of the environment around them. And that's partially because it's really interesting and cool, and also partially because I don't know how to make things that are like electrically powered yet. I mean, I have some basic understandings, but I'm not like a whole electrical or engineer or roboticist. That might come later. But I really like the kinetic sort of nature-powered things that just are there and they work and they're fun to watch.
So would you rather sort of cultivate that analog mentality and see what comes of that, or do you have a desire to get into the more technical and electrical robotic aspect at some point?
I definitely have an appetite for the kinetic sculptures that I need to sate, and I probably will be building some, designing and building some after Rainworks is in a good, like sustainable part once we get out of the startup phase. But after that, I can see myself getting more electrical because I really like lights. And I would think, especially in the Pacific Northwest, it'd be cool to have more sculptures or installations that involve light, because it can get kind of dreary around here. And I think it'd be nice to see more colorful, illuminated, kinetic stuff.
Gotcha. And that leads into the next question that I was going to ask. Your website says that the purpose of Rainworks is to turn rainy days into something to look forward to. So why was that so important to you?
It was more like, well, I'm a huge optimist. I love finding reasons to look forward to stuff, because if you're looking forward to something, it means it's going to be more fun than if you're not, obviously. And so if I can give people reasons to look forward to days that they wouldn't otherwise look forward to, then they're going to have a better time. It's just you're looking for reasons to make people smile.
Which aspect of this is more important or more closer to your heart? The social aspect of positivity or just the actual act of creativity?
Which one is closer? Oh, wow. It's actually, I'm really into both of them. I think if Rainworks were just fascinating in their own right in terms of the procedure and the mechanics behind it, and there was no like social payoff for it, I would probably still do it because the mechanical creative side of me just likes to do stuff like that. On the other hand, if I was doing something that wasn't super innovative but also made people smile, I would probably do that too. So it's really just a combination of two things that I like to do independently of each other. It's pretty awesome.
That is awesome. So what motivated you to follow through with this? I mean, launching a Kickstarter campaign is a big freaking task. Taking a product to market is a big freaking task. Aside from the, inherent social value that you see, why not just confine this as a hobby to your backyard or to your neighborhood? What motivated you to take this to a national market or national level?
You can't see it, but I just stuck my arms in the air because I was so ready to answer this question.
Perfect.
I've gotten this question before. Why? So you had this idea. Why'd you go do it? Well, because doing things is better than not doing things.
Amen to that.
I would why some people talk about, oh man, it'd be really cool if this happened or if this happened. And they think about doing things, but they don't do them. And when I notice that myself, I hate it because why not do it? If it would be cool to do that thing, why not make it happen? You don't have to be passive and just sit back and let the world's interesting things come to you. You can be a creator of the interesting things. And all it takes is not being afraid of failure, being willing to try stuff. I love people who are willing to try stuff, and I want to encourage that spirit in others. And when people got really excited about Rainworks, I was like, you want to make this? Go make this. And people were like, well, Kim, where do we get it? How do we get it? Can we get it from you? And it wasn't that I went into this saying, I need to come up with a business idea. It was more like, people want you to make this a business. Okay, fine. And it kind of got thrust upon us because of the enthusiasm that people presented us with when they saw it.
Did you have any kind of business sense or acumen before that, or did you have to acquire that as you went about trying to get this out to the masses?
I've mostly had to acquire it. Business is not my specialty. It's a lot of boring, tedious work, in my opinion.
I know second
some people,
that. Yeah.
Yeah. Some people are really good at it and can really get into it. But for me, paperwork and filing things and figuring out rules and restrictions is just the opposite of how I want to spend my time.
So how long did it take from concept, you first came up with the idea, to right now?
I probably came up with it 2013, I want to say. I'm not great at estimating years, but maybe late 2012, early 2013 is when I started thinking about it.
So this is 3 or 4 years in the works.
Probably, yeah, I think around 3 sounds right. I mean, it started slow. It started just when I learned about super hydrophobic coatings and had the idea. It took me a bit before I actually went out and bought some and started trying it. And then it took even longer before I found a super hydrophobic coating that would actually work, that was actually invisible when you put it on a surface. Some of them leave like a haze.
Now, was this all you, or did you have any friends that were helping you develop this?
I came up with the idea and then enlisted the help of some friends over time to turn it into reality. And now one of my best friends, Zach, he was there when we did the first real rain work. It's the Stay Dry Out there in front of a bus stop that a lot of people have seen a photo of. And it's not there anymore, but he's been there since the beginning. He knew about the idea before he even made the first one. I told him about it and said, this would be really cool. And he's like, yeah, that would be really cool. Sure enough, it's been pretty cool.
So a lot of people are simply painting positive messages, but some of the art that I've seen is super, super intricate. How do they do that?
Some of the Rainworks?
Yes.
The secret to making Rainworks that are really intricate, first you have to have an intricate stencil. So creating a stencil is one thing, but a lot of artists know how to do that. The hard part with creating a rainwork that looks really clean and good is the spraying technique. And with the stuff that you have to use, it just takes a really light touch, a really light spray, because it can bleed if you spray too much. So the secret is to spray lightly. But that reminds me of a point, because originally we didn't have a word for this. We were just calling it like rain activated art. And we kind of thought it wanted to continue that, but then we realized like some people are going to get on us because we're not always making art. A lot of times we're making positive messages just because we want to make the rainy day less dreary. And so we wanted to come up with a word that could mean not just art, but also just like anything that's rain activated, basically. So that's why we came up with a word called Rainwork.
Have you guys experimented with like dipping a brush and painting this on as opposed to just strictly spraying it?
Yeah, if you use a brush, it's kind of inefficient. It uses more of the chemical than you need to. And so you're wasting your invisible spray. And also, because more is going on the ground, the line will also bleed a little bit. And so it won't be a clean look. It's possible, I've done it, but you got to be really careful to just put enough down.
And then once it's down, how long does each piece of art last?
Typically around 2 to 4 months. It depends on the cleanliness of the surface and then the foot traffic afterward. We've had some that have lasted like almost a year.
And what is, I'm sorry, go ahead.
And I was just going to say again, typically 2 to 4 months.
So when you're actually applying this in public, are you getting weird looks from people? I mean, does it look like you're just down on the ground playing with invisible ink? So
this is one of the really cool things about going viral. When we started doing this, we would always do it in the dead of night, like midnight or 1 a.m. is when we'd go out to do this because we didn't want to get caught. We didn't know if it was legal. Later, we found out it was legal as long as we're doing it on public sidewalks and we're not advertising anything, which we don't do, that it's fine because it falls into the same jurisdiction as chalk art. But even then, we were nervous. And I remember the first one we created at that bus stop. Every time a bus would come by, we'd like sort of hide behind the bus stop and just hang out. But after we went viral, we figured out it was legal. Like we would go out and do it during the day. And then people would come up to us and be like, is this that rain activated art thing, Rainworks that I've heard about? And we're like, yeah, this is it. And it was really fun to meet people that way. And suddenly going from like being nervous and hiding to like being recognized, which is really fun. Interestingly, since the first one we did was at the bus stop and we were hiding, the last one we did last week was actually at bus stops for the Metro agency, basically, for the organization themselves who hired us to make some. So we've come a long way.
So how did you, if you were doing this in the dead of night and you had to go duck away and hide every time a car came or something, how do you go and line your stencil back up so you get everything aligned?
Oh, in those cases, like we had enough time, we would like lay one section down and then we'd spray it. And we'd have enough time to spray it twice to do the 2 coats before the next bus came. But then the bus would come and we'd like wait to continue it with the next sets of stencils. If something was coming and we're still waiting to do the next coat, we just wait there, pretend nothing was wrong, which it wasn't. It was fine. I actually had someone in the early days, I went out to do a small one at a bus stop. It was really late. And so I had the spray bottle and I had the stencil down. And I was about to start when I hear this woman's voice sternly behind me saying, "You are not about to do that." I turn around and I'm like, "Not about to do what?" She's like, "You're not about to do that." I'm like, "What do you think I'm about to do?" About to vandalize the sidewalk. Oh, well, actually. And I explained how it was a rainwork and it was rain activated and it was only going to be there when it got wet. And she's like, oh, that's cool. Okay. And then she just carried on her way. So she thought I was about to use spray paint, which has sort of a more vandalizing connotation, but it was cool that once I was able to explain what it was, she thought it was a positive thing.
So I like her reaction when you explained what it was. What kind of reactions do people get when they don't know this product exists and they see it for the first time?
The response we've gotten both in person and online has been overwhelmingly positive, which is really motivating for us to keep going. People like it, and I hear people starting to say, wow, I can't wait till the next rainy day, which is awesome because that's not something they were probably going to say before. But the fact that we've made people look forward to these days is just really satisfying and really motivating to continue.
Now, do you see this as a passing fad or a trendy movement, or do you see that this is like a product that has staying power? Another way of asking this is, if Rainworks met your wildest expectations, what does that look like in the future?
I think it depends how people use it and what they create. But I guess what I would fantasize about is like in the future on rainy days, people can be like, oh, let's go out and see the new Rainworks. The new Rainworks is made in this neighborhood over here. Let's go out and check it out. Or if someone visits a city that has a bunch of Rainworks and it rains, say like in Seattle, you'd be like, oh no, we're not staying inside today. I got to go show you all this cool stuff. The success of that is really on the creators, all the people who make Rainworks now to make cool things that are worth going out to see.
And is this in a store yet, or is it still strictly online?
Invisible Spray is currently only sold on our website, rain.works.
I want to talk about the Kickstarter aspect of this for a second. This is a really daunting endeavor. This is a stopping point for a lot of people. And you raised over $50,000 on Kickstarter for this project.
Barely.
And yeah, that's what I was going to say. If I'm not mistaken, you hit something like 7,000 on the final day, and it was, if you didn't hit your goal, you didn't get anything, and there was like a last second push.
We hit it with 7 hours to go, which was pretty nerve-wracking. We were actually at a maker fair when it happened, the Seattle Mini Maker Fair, showing off Rainworks when we finally realized we had hit our goal. It was fantastic.
So what did you guys do to punch through the finish line with 7 hours to go? Was there a marketing campaign, or did you guys have any hand in it?
We basically reached out. We reminded our supporters, like, this is it. Now's the time. And I guess what happened is that people who had been sort of following it but hadn't been sure reached out and donated. People at the Maker Fair who we've been talking to had gone home and donated. Several of the backers increased their pledges to help it get over the goal. Like, we reached out on Facebook, reached out to our mailing list and to say, everyone, this is the last push. And yeah, we made it over. And I learned later, like from like 3 separate people, like on their own, have been watching, or like, yeah, if it was like the last hour and you guys hadn't made it, I was just going to donate the rest. It was pretty cool to have some people like that out there.
So this is a 2-part question. What was the biggest challenge with the Kickstarter campaign itself? And then what was the biggest challenge with the actual product development?
The biggest challenge with the Kickstarter campaign was keeping the interest going. Because you get a big hit at the beginning when people first find out about it, but then it can sort of lull if you're not able to get the word out well. So at times it was tough getting enough people to see it. And it meant that we weren't sure if we were gonna make it at the right time. Now, when we succeeded, getting the actual product is like an even greater challenge. I have so much respect now for businesses and people who manufacture things, because there's just so much that goes into it. Like, basically, we have to get the spray, put it in a bottle, label it, put a cap on it, and put it in a box and send it off. But it doesn't seem like much, but man, so much goes into it, from like the packaging to actually like finding the suppliers for the materials and like fixing the packaging. You got to send like samples back and make notes, and shipping things is complicated. Our spray got really delayed from the manufacturer. But man, our product is so small. I have so much respect now for companies who make like printers. There's so many parts in that. Oh my God. It's just ridiculous. So yeah, my perspective has shifted a whole bunch in regards to like people who run businesses.
When you're developing a product like this, is there an equivalent of writer's block that you deal with?
There are decisions that need to be made, but it's usually with the creative decisions. I haven't had much trouble. Like when it came to designing the box, I just messed around until I found some designs that worked and just continued refining those. The tough parts were like, am I going to do like design A or design B? But it wasn't so much, what do I put on the box? Because we were able to come up with that. So in this instance, no. It was really just decisions, like this or that decisions that need to be made.
So I'm very curious about your answer for the next one. This is something I've asked all the guests so far, is when you're out in public and creative inspiration hits you, what do you do to capture it? You know, some people pull out an iPad and take a note, or some people will go in the bathroom and turn on their voice memo recorder and sing in the stall. You have an outlet that's actually done in public. So
I pull out my notes app on my iPhone. and jot it down. I have like categories of notes. If it fits in one of those categories, I'll go to that one. Or if it's a new idea, I'll make a new note for it.
And what time of day are you at your most creative? Are you a night owl or an early riser?
I'm a night owl, trying to become an early riser, but sometimes it's tough.
I am with you there. All right, so what piece of advice would you give somebody who wanted to launch, let's say they wanted to use crowdfunding to launch their own product? What piece of advice would you give them?
So if you've already got your product and you want to crowdfund it, I would recommend building some hype before you start the crowdfunding, like letting people know that this is going to come. We kind of surprise people, but I feel like looking at other campaigns, it probably would have been better if we had told people it was coming. We did a short 22-day campaign. I would recommend going with 30. But probably the biggest one is like really work on presenting your product in an interesting way. Like don't skimp on the video. Don't skimp on your descriptions. Like make it look good, professional. Check out other campaigns that did really well and just take notes on them. Definitely look at what people have done and try to emulate it in yours. Like not copy word for word, of course. You want to be original, but there are some themes of basically professionalism and information that you can deliver. Yeah, have everything planned out.
And what single cautionary tale would you tell someone who was thinking about doing this?
Yeah, I would maybe reiterate like give yourself 30 days. And if you want to reach out to outlets like news outlets or blogs that would share your product, reach out to them personally. Don't send them like a form letter or something, because it's way less likely to get a response. Like actually find someone whose name you know and tell them about it. Make friends with them.
Back to the actual product. You guys have tons of pictures. Is there a main artist for Rainworks, or are you all involved with the artistic application?
I'm the one who makes most of the designs that you see. Zach makes some of the designs. He's starting to get more into it. Most of the ones you see on the website are ones that I've made in Inkscape and then just turned into a stencil. When it comes to actually making the rainwork, that's almost always myself plus Zach, and sometimes some other friends come along to help out. But usually the people making it is Zach and I.
So I would think that you'd have to spend almost as much time, or if not more time, stenciling this. Like, what is the stenciling process? Do you have to draw it out and then cut it out?
We used to do things by hand, but now we have a little more streamlined process. I have a desktop cutting plotter. Basically, it's a stencil cutter. Mine is the Silhouette Studio. It can cut things a foot wide and like any length long. So I was lucky enough to find at a recycling depot a bunch of these rolls of like 120-pound cardstock with a glossy coat on one side, and it's like 13 inches wide. So it fits within the Silhouette Cameo, and then it cuts within like a 12-inch section of that. And so when we're making like strings of text, it's really easy to just send it through that machine. We usually do 4-foot segments at a time. But we have the machine cut almost all the way through the paper, but not completely, so that the pieces don't go flying out when it's partway through cutting it. And then after it's done cutting a section, we take that section out and we can like then pop out the letters or the images or the animals or whatever we've made. And then the stencil is complete. We can label it and organize it and everything.
And are you generating the stencils with a computer program?
I designed the stencils in Inkscape, which is like a free version of Adobe Illustrator.
Okay, gotcha.
Like the
I wasn't sure what that was. Yeah.
And then I convert it to a DXF file, which can be read by the Silhouette Studio software. And if it's a really big piece, like I'll just sort of move the design onto the paper in like sections, and then we can assemble it all together. That's how a lot of these bigger ones are made, are just sections of paper that end up aligning when we're actually installing.
And then is there any desire? I remember when the two guys, they started making the crop circles, and each time they did one, it got a little bit bigger and a little bit more intricate until they were finally doing these ones that were hundreds of yards across or whatever. Do you have any desire to like do an airport tarmac, or eventually get some huge surface?
Absolutely. Yeah. Eventually I think it'd be cool to do like cover a whole plaza or whole set of park walkways with just like a continuous rainwork. I think that'd be awesome. Really, it's just finding the place and then investing all that time into creating stencils and installing it, because it's going to be a really ambitious thing to do.
Yeah, I would think that would be one of those almost like a flash mob scenarios where you could just get 100 people to come out and they know the day and the time and everybody brings their own stencil or whatever and you guys just make this incredible, intricate mural.
I think that'd be awesome. I feel like once we're sort of aware of the community of creators out there, like we have a Rainwork Makers Facebook group that we just started. Like once that builds up, yeah, you could totally organize local, like just Rainwork days somewhere. Of course, you want to get the park's permission and have everything approved, which is probably going to be a little bit of a headache just because of bureaucracy. But yeah, that'd be awesome.
What's the largest one you've done so far?
The largest individual Rainwork we've made was 20 feet in diameter, required like around 50 individual sheets of paper that aligned up with each other. And it was a big circular hopscotch game that took you through the water cycle. So it's a big circular water cycle that you could actually like hop through.
And where do you guys come up with the ideas of what to paint?
We come up with the ideas all the time. Sometimes randomly, sometimes we'll just sit down and like have an idea generating session, basically thinking of things that would make me a smile on a rainy day or make someone laugh or just look really cool or something that's like related to rain in a motivational way or a funny way or a witty way. Like one of the ones people like best is just one that says today's weather, rain on the ground.
I'm looking at some of the images on Google right now and I see the raindrops keep falling on my head and it's got the musical notes.
Oh yeah. Yeah, things that are like, yeah, pop culture references are usually really good.
And I like this water faucet also with the drops coming out. And okay, here's a circular one. How in the world? There's one that's going around. It looks like a fountain.
The fountain one says like a smile is a fountain of happiness, making everything around it blossom into smiles.
Logistically, how do you do a round text stencil like that?
Very carefully. We basically had to cut out each letter. Instead of a string of letters that were connected on a sheet of paper, we had to cut each one out individually or in like sections of two. I think we did them all individually that time. And just basically figure out a circle and then sort of plan around it and just place each one down, like fixing the angle as you go along and then taping them down or weighing them down with rocks just to make sure it would stay where it needed to be. So that one was just a lot of really careful placement.
That is cool. Well, if you ever get this big flash mob to come out and do a plaza, I'm going to be part of that for sure.
Awesome. Yeah, if we're in the Nashville area, we'll definitely hit you up.
I got a couple questions left just about the product itself. When a bottle, how long does a bottle last or how much artwork can you get out of a single bottle?
So with our standard 2-ounce bottle of invisible spray, it looks small, but that's enough to cover 10 to 15 square feet because it's nanotechnology and it really doesn't take a lot. You got to be sprayed really lightly. And so it lasts for a couple like regular size Rainworks. And if you've got like a footsteps, you can make easily like 15 of those with one. So, I mean, it depends on the size, but yeah, 10 to 15 square feet is what a bottle will cover. And the Rainworks themselves last around 2 to 4 months. Depends on the surface and the installation conditions, of course, but yeah.
And a bottle costs how much?
Right now we're selling bottles for $29 on our website. And each one comes with a stencil. The box that we send it in, basically the packaging, unfolds into a stencil basically that you can cut out by hand. It's basically pre-drawn, or you can use that material to cut out your own design if you want. It's got a flower basically inside the box.
Are you guys encouraging people to send in photos? Are you posting photos that come in from around the country?
Absolutely, yeah. We really want to see people's photos. We have on our website, I guess I didn't mention this, on our website we have the official Rainworks map where all the Rainworks in the world are. And of course, it wasn't really just the stuff we created, but if someone else creates a Rainwork, they can send their Rainwork, a photo of it and the location to us. And we can add it to the map with them credited as the creator. Of course, there are limitations, like some guidelines. We don't allow any blatant advertising or, of course, no like hate speech or anything. Basically, it has to make someone's day better or be interesting in some way. Yeah, when we take commissions, if someone asks us to do like, hey, will you do like our logo and like these hashtags because we want to spread awareness for this campaign, we're like, no, no, we don't do that. We'll work with businesses to make Rainworks that reinforce their values, but we won't do like blatant advertisements or promotions or anything, because that's not the point of Rainworks. I wouldn't look forward to seeing rain activated advertisements. I want to see something artistic or positive.
I definitely do not disagree with you on that. All right, Peregrine, we've come to the final round of questions here. Number 1, if your job only paid the bills and nothing more than that, would you still continue to do it?
Well, given that my job is basically make whatever you think is cool, yeah, that's pretty much all I want to do. Besides, like, once Rainworks is sustainable, like the same business, which is called Shenanigans LLC, that's the official business name, we're going to go on just to make more interesting novelty and stuff. So yeah, if that's what I have to do for the rest of my life, yes, please.
What talent or skill do you not have that you wish you did?
This might be kind of mundane, but general self-discipline when it comes to like being a tidy person. Like, I would love the skill to just like have no qualms about doing dishes and laundry and cleaning the room.
You would be the perfect roommate.
Yes. And I have a roommate. I'm not perfect. I'm all right. Like, it's not a complete disaster, but basically like the superpower of not procrastinating my responsibilities would be my talent.
All right, fill in the blank here. I am a success if I
am happy, like sustainably happy.
And again, fill in the blank. I'm a failure if I
am not enjoying what I'm doing, like not in the moment, but like if I'm stuck in a rut that is not taking me somewhere.
What's the single best piece of advice that you followed to get where you are today?
I remember in high school when I was trying to decide whether or not I wanted to take on the commitment of being in the school play that year. The drama teacher knew I was struggling with a decision and told me, look, whether you do it or not, it doesn't matter. What matters is making the decision and not thinking about what would have happened had you chose the other one. Because there's no point in worrying about what you could be doing. Just make your decision and then live that decision.
Is there a piece of advice that you're glad you ignored?
Probably the advice, you should finish college, is something I didn't do and I didn't need to do. And that depends on what you're doing. But if you're going to become an expert in something that no one else is an expert on, which means that like there's not really any college courses for it, and the best way to become that is to just go do it all the time. Like, you don't need college for that. People are going to acknowledge that you're the expert in that because you show them that they are, not because you have a degree that's vaguely related to it.
What character trait do you like best about yourself?
Creativity.
What character trait do you like least about yourself?
It basically boils down to procrastination. Like, if I feel like I have time, plenty of time to get something done that's important, I will wait until I feel like there's barely enough time to get that done and then get it done in a really stressful hurry. Not a great habit.
Fill in the blank. I believe every child should have the opportunity to
build stuff. Basically, Legos, blocks, whatever. Just a kid in a room with something they can rearrange.
If you could suggest one piece of self-improvement that everyone on Earth would adopt, what would it be?
Self-awareness, for sure. Basically, awareness of your own, like, cognitive biases, like why you behave the way you do, what's factoring into that. Self-awareness.
All right, here's a fun one. If you could have any superpower, what would it be?
You just got to go with flight, man. But like, let's be realistic. The power of flight, like really fast flight without getting too cold, from the wind, and like being still able to see if you're going really fast,
I love that you just pointed out the cold factor that nobody ever thinks about.
Like, it's no good if you can fly, like if you're just going to be freezing. Like, I got to stop.
All right, we got 3 more questions for you. If you could have dinner with anyone, alive or dead, who would it be?
Nikola Tesla.
An hospitable nearby planet has been discovered and you have been recruited to help colonize it. You may take any 3 items with you that you wish. What are they? And I'm going to say one of them is a bottle of Rainworks.
I was going to say food, water, and shelter.
No, those are already taken care of. All your necessities are met.
Okay.
Yeah.
Could take a bottle of Rainworks Invisible Spray, but I'm not sure how often it would rain there.
Let's say it's a rainy planet.
Sure. Okay. So 2 items left. A deck of cards, because I'm a magician as well. And probably like a soccer ball, because we might get bored.
All right. You just won a Lifetime Achievement Award in your field. So give us your acceptance speech. There's not going to be any music to cue you off the stage, so you can say all the thank yous that you need to, or if there's a personal cause that you want to champion, this is your soapbox. So let her rip.
Thank you for the Lifetime Achievement Award. I need to thank the people who are instrumental in getting me here, like my mom and dad, grandparents, all the family, and just as importantly, the friends who I have been lucky enough to make, who inspire me with their creative ways, who believe in me when I have ridiculous ideas. I want to encourage everyone to find friends who believe in them and inspire them. And most importantly, believe in yourself, that the world is a sandbox game and you can make anything you want happen. Don't be afraid of failure. Don't be afraid of what people are going to say about you, because it really just will not matter in the long run. You won't regret it.
That is beautifully put. Well done. All right, everybody, that was Peregrine Church, the creator of Rainworks. And one more time, tell us where they can go to find out more about your product and order it.
Our product is called Invisible Spray. You can use it to make Rainworks, and you can find it at www.rain.works. Not .com, rain.works.
Rain.works. All right, Peregrine, we appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us all the way from Seattle, and best of luck.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Absolute pleasure. Once again, that was the founder and creator of Rainworks, Peregrine Church. To check out some of their incredible rain-activated art or to create your own Rainworks, pick up a bottle of Rainworks Invisible Spray at rain.works. I'd like to thank everyone for joining me today. You are listening to the Live to Create podcast, and this is Shane Ongren reminding you to dream big, be inspired, and live creatively.